So welcome back to the show. So I want to talk about two main things today. I want to talk about the fourth stimulus check and just looking at the total cost of a fourth stimulus check, and could we potentially see that in the American Families Plan and what that would look like if we saw it in the American Families Plan. I also want to talk about the worker shortage. So you keep hearing employers coming out and saying that they can't find people to work for them, and you're hearing all this come out. And so I want to dig in deep when it comes to this worker shortage and then look at some of the reasons why these employers are having a hard time finding employees. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please hit the like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. Okay, like always, I just wanted to remind you guys, if you see my name and my picture in the comment section, make sure there's also a check mark next to my name. If you do not see that check mark, it is not me. It's someone that's trying to spam you. Now, I want to talk about the fourth stimulus check. Now, let's look at the cost of this fourth stimulus check. So we know the last stimulus package, it was about $400 billion, a little more than $400 billion. That's the cost of sending out stimulus checks to the same target demographic that was sent out the last time. So the people who received it the last time, those same people, if you were to send out a fourth stimulus check to those same people, it's going to be around $400 billion to $450 billion. So that's what we're looking at right now when it comes to a cost, if we're looking at a fourth stimulus check. So we already know the American Families Plan is $3.5 trillion. That's the estimation right now. However, if you were looking at $400 or $450 billion that would be allocated to a certain portion of the plan, that's a big portion. And that's something that we would probably be hearing about right now. So we have some details about the American Families Plan, and I would think if stimulus checks was a part of that, we would be hearing details about that as well. So two things need to happen. So we either need to start hearing politicians talk more about this fourth stimulus check, or we're going to need to see them add money to this $3.5 trillion. So if we're looking more in the neighborhood of $4 trillion, well, then maybe that's something where they're planning to show a fourth stimulus check in this package. But we're not hearing that. We're not seeing the numbers increase. So as of right now, the $3.5 trillion, it looks like they have places for that money already. And so that they would. So at this point, I think they would need to add to it. So we would need to see a $4 trillion package in order to realistically see another round of stimulus checks. Now, I would love to tell you that the fourth stimulus check is on its way, but the reality is at this point, money is going to need to be added in order for us to see something else when it comes to another stimulus check. So you just need to keep that in mind. And this is a time where you really need to get the word out. So if you really want a stimulus check, you need to lobby Congress. You need to talk about it. Because if we keep the message out there, then we'll see more politicians start to talk about this. And as we see more politicians talking about this, maybe this will be something that they will implement in the American Families Plan. Okay, so let's talk about worker shortage. So I have a comment that I want to go over, and then I have an illustration that I want to show you. So this is Cameron here. Thank you very much, Cameron, for posting this comment. And she writes, "It's funny how nobody asks whether businesses that can't get workers are a good place to work." Now, this is key. Good place to work. You have businesses out there that are just not good places to work. And you have people that are looking at that and they're weighing their options. They're saying, you know what? I don't want to go back to this job, or I don't want to go to this job to begin with because I've heard bad things about it. So just because they can't find workers, that doesn't mean that, oh, it's because of stimulus checks or it's because of all this money that the government was giving people and giving businesses during the pandemic. It's not because of that. It's because some of these jobs people just don't want to go back to. Just because you can afford to open a storefront does not grant you the right to employees. Another good point. Just because you have a store doesn't mean that you have a right to have employees. You need to earn those employees, right? You need to offer them benefits, offer them something so they'll come work for you. Businesses have been treating employees like trash for decades and taking advantage of the fact that everyone needed a job. People deserve to weigh their options. Good point. They deserve that. They should be able to look at a job and say, okay, I want this one or I don't want this one for whatever reason. They should have that opportunity. They shouldn't be forced back into the workforce. They should have options. Businesses have been doing it at the expense of everyone and everything else for far too long. Boo-hoo. So really good points there. I mean, when you look at it, and we're looking at this whole job market, we're looking at these employers that are they're in dire straits right now. And what that will mean is, hopefully it will mean that they're going to have to raise their salary and raise their hourly wage in order to get some of these employees in there, and then improve their working conditions. If you have poor working conditions, yeah, people aren't going to go back, or they're not going to go to begin with. So let's look at this illustration that I have here, because I want to go over some of these, some of the details and some of the reasons why I think that there's a worker shortage right now. So first thing I want to look at here is workers want better compensation. So we just talked about this. They want a higher wage. They want higher salaries. $15 an hour debate. You saw how that went. You saw how you had politicians on one side saying, no, $15 an hour is too much. And then on the other side saying $15 an hour is what should be the standard. And that is we're probably going to see close to that $15 an hour. And it's not going to be because the government is pretty much setting that number. It's because businesses are going to start realizing we need to raise our rates, because at this point, we have a lot of people who are looking at this, a lot of people who are potential employees looking at this and saying, we'll just go elsewhere. We'll find other jobs. So that's going to be something in the coming months. We're really going to have to watch this, because that's going to be something that I think is going to be the norm. Now, something else here, workers are rethinking their career choice. Now, this is big, right? Because you have a lot of people that pre-pandemic, they're working in a job and they're thinking they're safe. And they're, when I say safe, I mean, they've been there for 10, 15, 20 years, and they don't see any possibility of them being furloughed or losing their job. But due to the pandemic, that happened. And so now they were laid off or they were furloughed, and now they're looking at going back to a job. Do you want to go back to a job where this potentially could happen again? Or do you want to go to a job where there's more stability and also dangers? So you saw a lot of people working on the front lines, working at grocery stores and things like that. They were essential workers. They had to be there. And the dangers of being in a situation during a pandemic where you could either get COVID-19 or pass that on to your family, that's a scary thing. And so people at this point, I think, are starting to look at the work from home option. They're looking at a situation where I want to work from home, or at least have that option. So if I'm working in a full-time job, let's say I work in an office environment, and something like this happens again, we have another pandemic, they have that option to work from home. And so that's something that I think is now going to be a perk when it comes to new hires, people coming into a job. They're going to be looking at that. They're not going to want to do that frontline work. They're going to want to work a job where they have that option to work from home. Now, another thing, workers are relocating. Now, this is big because this comes from the work from home option. Some people now have the option to work from home, and some people are working from home full time and they're not going into an office at all. So now they have an opportunity to relocate. And I was just in Kauai a couple of weeks ago, and there was a couple that relocated to Kauai, and they've been there for the last year. Now they'll be coming back to Los Angeles, but they were able to relocate because they were working from home. Now this is opening up a lot of opportunities to people, and one of it is moving out of the big city. So they don't have to live in big cities anymore. They can move into smaller towns and just work from home, so they can completely relocate. And another thing to look at is people are getting out of the job market entirely. And let's say you have a couple, husband and wife, and the husband decides, you know what, I can work remotely. And the wife says, okay, you know what, I'm going to get out of the job market entirely because we're going to move to another area. Or the wife decides, I'm going to work from home. And the husband says, you know what, I'm going to get out of the working market entirely and watch the kids. So this is a situation that we didn't see before, but because people are working from home, and if you were to move somewhere else, if you were to relocate, leave a large, big city and move into a smaller town where rent or mortgage is half the cost of what you were paying before, then you have that option. You have that option to move out of the workforce entirely. Another thing here is workers are struggling with childcare. So this is a big thing, right? So people are seeing now where, well, if you're working and your, husband and wife are both working and the kids, you need childcare for the kids. Well, you might think of, okay, well, maybe one of us can work and the the other one can stay home and we don't have to pay for this childcare. And childcare is really getting expensive now. And part of Biden's American Families Plan, part of that plan is to address the whole childcare issue. And also, the last thing, and I think this is happening a lot, is you have older workers retiring early. So you have a lot of people who are working and they could retire any day and they just chose to continue working. But now with the COVID fears and with the pandemic and with everything that's happened last year, I think some of these workers are looking at this situation and saying, you know what? I'm just going to retire. I could have retired years ago, but I'm just going to retire now. And so those are some of the major factors that I think are contributing to this worker shortage. And I think there's an easy fix, and the easy fix is raising the wages. That's the only way that you're going to fix this, because this is a workers' market, I guess you could say it like that, where now they have options. And now that they have options, guess what? These employers are going to have to cater to these workers, because if they don't, workers are just going to hold out, or they're going to move into some of these other industries. And I know there have been some industries that have been hit really hard, like the restaurant industry, but they're going to have to really focus on getting employees. And one of the things, the easiest way to get employees, if you raise that hourly wage up, you're going to have people that are going to come in. And then also offer different benefits and improve working environment. Because if the working environment's bad, that gets around and people are not going to go, or they'll go and they'll work for a few months and then they'll realize this is not where I want to be, and then they'll leave. And then now you're going to have to try to hire someone else and retrain someone else. So these are the major reasons. Now, I know that people will talk, okay, it's because of the stimulus checks. That's why people aren't going back to work. It's because of the enhanced unemployment, that extra $300 a week. That's why people aren't going back to work. But the reality is, even if it was that stuff, the stimulus checks are not here right now. And we don't know if we'll see a fourth one. And the enhanced unemployment will be expiring soon. So we'll have to see if that has an effect. But as of right now, the easiest way to fix this, raise that minimum wage, raise it up to $15 an hour, or raise your wage, whatever your wage is, raise it up a little bit, and you'll probably be able to get more employees. So that's what I have for you guys today. If you guys have any questions, post them down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.